In 1964, Walt Disney began quietly acquiring swampy wetlands in Florida, future site of Walt Disney World. Walt Disney acquired more than 27,000 acres of land, about the same size of San Francisco. Besides building Walt Disney World, Walt Disney also wanted to build a futuristic planned city, which would serve commercial and residential needs. Walt Disney named his planned city Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow, or EPCOT for short. Disney wanted EPCOT to be a testbed for new urban living ideas. Unfortunately, Disney never saw his futuristic planned city come to fruition. Disney died in 1966, and Disney's planned city was quickly abandoned after Disney's death. But what if Disney's planned city wasn't abandoned and was actually developed and supported by the Disney Corporation? Would it be a model private city, fully operated by a corporation rather than a government? The 27,000 acre of land that Walt Disney purchased is currently operated through the Reedy Creek Improvement District, a joint operation between the Florida State Legislature and Walt Disney World, which effectively allows Disney to operate the areas surrounding Walt Disney Resort like a private city. Disney is responsible for maintaining services typically supplied by local government, such as water, roads, power, and even medical services. The district is even allowed to write its own special building codes, the EPCOT codes, and issue tax-free municipal bonds. Would Walt Disney's EPCOT city be a city you would like to live and work in? Disney's resorts and properties are known for their carefully manicured gardens and well-running facilities, and the ability to serve a large number of visitors efficiently. Could they replicate their success in running a large resort to running a large city? There are several advantages that a corporation has over a government when it comes to building and running a city. Shriti Ranjagopalan and Alexander Tabarrok looked at a unique city in India, Gurgaon, and examined how corporations can run large parts of a city. In 1979, Gurgaon was a barren village that lacked basic utilities and amenities. However, Gurgaon had a key difference that separated it from other Indian cities. Gurgaon had a vastly simplified land acquisition process that allowed private developers to acquire large lots of land and develop the land to meet commercial needs. This ease of land acquisition and land use in Gurgaon was unique in India. Typically, developers would have to work through India's notoriously complex government bureaucracy, which allowed various government departments to extract bribes. In Gurgaon, they simplified the land acquisition and change in land use process, which allowed foreign corporations such as Honda and American Express to build large operations in Gurgaon, which transformed Gurgaon from a barren village to a modern city with skyscrapers, luxury apartment towers, and shopping malls. Shriti and Alexander noted how the local government utilities and infrastructures paled in comparison to private utilities and infrastructure. For example, local government firefighters didn't have sufficient resources for a city the size of Gurgaon, and the equipment they did have didn't allow firefighters to effectively combat high-rise fires. Private industrial parks and complexes had their own private fire brigade that had modern equipment that could reach the top of high-rises. Private corporations also had better roads, water supply, and electricity than what the local government was able to offer. Shriti and Alexander theorized that if the local government would allow the private corporations to develop and own even larger tracts of land, they would be incentivized to develop the infrastructure of the city. It's easy to understand why. You're much more likely to improve the house you own than the neighboring public park. Private companies would invest in power, water, roads, and security to ensure smooth commercial operations and to help attract top talent. In return, citizens of Gurgaon would have improved infrastructures and working environment. The financial incentives for private firms to improve infrastructure and amenities could result in rapid transformations. Just compare the appearance and maintenance of a public bathroom versus a private hotel bathroom. Government is usually slow to respond, and calls to action are usually marred in red tape and government infighting between different agencies. Jamshedpur, another city in India, was developed by the Tata Steel Company to attract workers for Tata Steel. Tata provided many services that was traditionally provided by the local government, including education. Jamshedpur ranks 7th out of 441 cities and towns in India on sanitation and cleanliness, according to India's Ministry of Urban Development. Shriti and Alexander also noted that Jamshedpur's water quality is well above the average Indian city, and Jamshedpur also enjoys 99.42% power availability, one of the highest in India. But what happens to Jamshedpur if Tata Steel isn't doing well financially? Will they begin shutting down services such as water, power, road, and education? Or raising prices for these amenities? Will residents of Jamshedpur become hostages to Tata Steel's financial well-being? We can see how cities that rely on one company or one industry quickly collapse and go into disarray when the company or industry the city depended on go into financial distress. Detroit used to be a bustling metropolis before the automotive industry began closing down factories in Detroit, and there are numerous mining and logging towns that disappeared after those industries were hit with financial difficulties. Would it be wise to depend on a single company or industry to run a city and to provide all the services that local government usually provide, given the financial instability companies and industries typically go through in a business cycle? What would happen to a MySpace city or a Kodak city when MySpace and Kodak fell from relevance? What may be good for the shareholders of the corporations that develops and administrates a private city may not be good for the residents of the private city. In theory, democratically elected government officials have to answer to their constituents. If they don't, they will be ousted in the next election. But in public corporation, shareholders are a corporation's constituents. Lavasa, an Indian city ran by the Lavasa Corporation Limited, and according to Persis Teraporvala, research associate with the Center for Policy Research in New Delhi, the Lavasa Corporation has clauses in its contracts with the residents of Lavasa that are highly suspect. A customer cannot sell or lease her property without consent from Lavasa Corporation. In case a customer decides to sue Lavasa Corporation, the contract stipulates that this can only be done through a process of arbitration in Mumbai. Lavasa Corporation also has the right to choose the arbitrator, and all proceedings have to be conducted in English. Econtalk, a planned city built on an artificial island in Nigeria, will be built privately and administrated privately. Promotional videos show towering skyscrapers, modern shopping malls, and luxury apartments. Econtalk looks like a model private city, an example of the rapid urbanization that can take place when governments and private corporations cooperate. But what of the millions of Nigerian citizens who live in poverty? What part will they play in this modern city? Or will Econtalk be a gated community of the rich and the powerful? Or a better question, are all private cities designed with the affluent in mind? The public bathroom proves convenient when you can't afford to stay at the Shangri-La. The developing world needs more cities. Urban dwellers enjoy higher levels of income, education, and healthcare when compared to the rural counterparts. China was able to lift millions of its citizens out of poverty due to its urbanization efforts. However, government in developing worlds don't always have the resources or the political will to foster rapid urbanization. Private companies can assist in creating new cities with its resources, know-how, and financial incentives to get things running quickly, smoothly, and efficiently. Disney turned Florida's swampland to a multi-billion-dollar enterprise that employs thousands, entertains many, and contributes greatly to state coffers. Gurgaon was transferred from a barren, desolate village to a bustling metropolis when it allowed private companies to develop and administer large tracts of land. However, private cities has its darker sides. Having a city tied to one company or industry is just asking for trouble. Just ask Detroit how one shouldn't have all their eggs in one basket. And will private cities just be the private playground of the rich and the powerful? Just a few kilometers outside of the planned pristine towers of Econtalk, Nigerians go about their days in the aquatic slums of Mokoko.